All right, everybody, this is JL, the author of What She Taught Me, and I want to introduce my partner, Angela. And this isn't just my partner. This is someone who has a very unique, broad, and deep understanding of all of the topics that I talk about, which is a big reason why she's my partner. So what I wanted to do that's a little different is create a podcast, or just something that you can listen to that offers a different perspective. Because every time I make these videos or talk about any of these topics, she always brings up something from the other end of the spectrum that causes me to think a little harder about it or see it from a different place. So I really value her opinion and what she brings to the conversation. All right, so without further ado, Angela.
Yes, hello. Wow.
All right, good to have you.
What an introduction.
I try. I do what I can. All right, so we started talking about the video that I just completed, and as we were getting to that video, I was like, man, I need to get this. We need to record this. And we've been talking about this for a while, doing this. But I definitely wanted your perspective on the video and, help open it up a little bit. So the video is on the healer.
Yes.
And it kind of merges into the giver as well, because the healer is very much so a giver.
Mm-hmm.
And I really wanted to do this video because I've had people in my life, including yourself, who are healers by nature, who are givers by nature. But I've watched a lot of these people be taken advantage of, used. I've seen a lot of these people get to the end of their life and they're in terrible condition because people have taken advantage of them, because they didn't have the proper boundaries, because they didn't, and as I talked about in the video, they didn't strategically place givers around them to keep them balanced. So I think it's a really important topic, and this is why I spent so much time writing the book about it. So what were some of the takeaways that you had about it, and let's talk about it.
Yeah, so one of the first things that I really liked about the video was the fact that you talked about the responsibility of both people in this kind of dynamic,
right?
And how it's really the responsibility of both, because a lot of times I think the focus is on the person who is there either receiving or taking, and we put a lot of the focus and responsibility on that person because it's easy to view a giver / healer as a victim in a lot of these types of relationships where there's like a giver and a taker. An empath and a narcissist, or a healer and a sick or maybe toxic person, or what have you.
Right.
So I like the fact that you kind of talk about balance,
right,
and talk about the responsibilities of both to protect and to really respect what is there to offer with that.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's like you see people who are in these relationships being taken advantage of, and I certainly was in a relationship like that before, and you were in a relationship like that before. And I've told you that in my situation where I was being taken advantage of and I was in this toxic relationship and I was so focused on giving to this person, and to the point where I'd become toxic to other people.
Yeah.
But that's a conversation for another day. But I just remember at the end of that relationship, going to therapy. Like, I'm the person who's going to therapy, and this person is just out, thinking that they did everything right. But I'm the one in therapy. I've driven myself crazy in this relationship. But at that time, I was thinking that this person drove me crazy. And I just remember talking to the therapist, and at the end of the session, she said one thing to me. She said, "Why are you still there?"
Right.
And I just thought, damn, I only needed one session to figure out that the real issue in the relationship was me.
Yeah.
Because why am I in this in the first place?
Right.
Why am I breaking myself to give so much to this person to the point where I've become toxic and I've become empty, and this person is just walking off scotch-free while I'm sitting in the therapist chair. And so it really made me dig deep within myself to find out what is inside of me that is attaching me to this type of person, this type of relationship. And really what it is the toxic part of me is attached to the toxic part of them. And so that question alone made me really rethink the whole situation, and made me see that I was my problem, not necessarily that person who I was in a relationship with.
Absolutely. I love that, because it's true. You know, oftentimes for people who are in that kind of a relationship or that situation, you do feel like the victim. You feel like you're the one who's being mistreated, and you're giving so much to someone who doesn't appreciate it. But that is the real question, is why? Why are you doing that to yourself? Why are you allowing that type of thing to continue to happen to you? And it's interesting because it's really hard to see ourselves beyond our intentions. And it's like, you're there, you think you're there at the time because you think that you're loving, you think you're giving, you're healing, and you think that makes you good. But it's hard to see yourself truly beyond that intention.
Right.
It's hard to see the fact that you have all of this to give, and basically you're throwing it away on someone who doesn't know how to actually receive it. You know, it's like, it's not necessarily being wasted, because there is still something to be received from just that person having the knowledge that someone was there and treated them that way. But at the same time, it's like, it's not actually landing in the hands of someone who knows what to do with it and how to actually appreciate it.
But you know what? And you just covered so many things. But I know that we've talked about this before in terms of it can be frustrating when you're giving to somebody and they can't receive it. But it may not be their time to receive it. And so, you know, it can be frustrating to think, I'm giving all this to this person and they can't even see me and they can't really appreciate me, but it may not be their time to. Sometimes people move on into the next relationship, third, fourth relationship after that, and they look back and they see, oh damn, like this is what I was getting at that point. And their realization and their growth happens later on in their life.
Yeah.
You know, and nobody wants that. You want it to happen while you're together because you've invested so much in that relationship.
Yeah.
But it doesn't always happen like that, you know. Sometimes it takes time for a person to gain the lesson that, you know, would have saved a lot of trouble if they would have gained it earlier, you know.
Right. Yeah.
They gain it when it's their time to gain it.
And truthfully, I think the interesting thing about that is that when you are the giver and the healer, and you know that you're here with this person who needs this love and this healing so badly, and they can't see it, but you can. And it's like you
can see it so clearly.
You can, and you're holding on to the hope for dear life that you can actually save them or help them in some way, or at least make them feel loved. I think that with a lot of people who are trying to be the selfless giver in the relationships, they just really want this person to know how much they're actually loved.
Yeah.
And I think that the interesting thing about it is that oftentimes you're really thinking that you're going to save this person from kind of their own demise, maybe.
Right.
But what you may really be doing in that moment or in that span of time that you're with them is preventing them from getting the lesson that they really need to get in order to be at that point where they could actually appreciate what you're giving.
So the very thing that you're trying to save them from is also the thing that they need.
Exactly.
But you don't want to see a person who you care about experience that level of pain.
You don't.
And so you're trying to keep them from avoiding that pain. So, but at the same time, your efforts to keep them from avoiding that pain is causing you pain.
Yes.
And you know, that can be a hard kind of line to figure out at what point do I detach myself from this and let this person go and feel that pain? I think that's the big question for a lot of people in relationships. Like, at what point do I release this person?
Yeah.
To save myself.
Yeah, I heard a very impactful quote at one point in time that someone said to me when I was in that situation. And the saying was like, don't save someone from the natural consequences of their own decisions. Because as a human being, when you make a decision, you're deserving of the consequences or the rewards.
Right.
So if you're this person who is kind of operating in the world in a very like chaotic kind of way, and you're this person who is a taker and a manipulator and someone who is just a sick person going around to every source of healing you can find until it's depleted, because you're insatiable, because you're just hurting and you're not getting the lesson, you're not meeting the consequences that you need in order for you to actually see yourself.
Yeah.
And then you just, you continue to go from healer to healer to healer. And they're just trying to save you from those consequences because they don't want to see you hurt anymore.
Right.
Than they can already see you are hurting now.
And that puts you in even, a worse position in being able to heal, because once you get to a place where you do see yourself, where you do see the trauma and you see what you did, the damage that you caused, now you have to deal with that as well. Because you're seeing not only how many good people you have harmed, but you're seeing, all of the damage that you caused, and all of the good that you've rooted out of your own life because of the traumas or the pains that you weren't dealing with. So now you got to deal with that on top of what caused it in the first place. And that's really difficult. So people are digging themselves in a ditch with every person, with every healer that they come into contact with, where they're taking rather than receiving.
Definitely, and I do think that if more people who would be considered, givers or healers, I think that if they could see that, it would help them see themselves so much more clearly, because you think that you're helping a person, you think that you're saving them from, their own doing, but in the end, you're only hurting that person more and hurting yourself as well.
Yeah.
Because you're hurting their chances of getting the lesson. You're hurting their chances of looking in the mirrors that they need to look into.
Yeah, that's something that I definitely want to do a video on at some point, and we should definitely do a talk about, is people seeing themselves.
Yeah.
And the closer a person is to you, your intimate relationship, the bigger the mirror is. And I don't want to get into a whole conversation like a whole different subject, but you really are tasked with looking in that mirror and seeing yourself through this person who you've chosen to be close with, so that you can become a better person. Right? Yeah. It's not really, in my opinion, it's not really the responsibility of either person to save the other person.
No.
You can tell this person, like, hey, this is something that I see in you, that can cause you to go into a ditch if you're not careful.
Right.
And you may even show them how it's happened over and over again in the past in the way that they didn't see. But it's not your job to, hold this person by the shirt, by the collar, and say, no, don't do that, because then it causes a strain on you and it causes a strain on the entire relationship.
I love that, because that's the truth. No person can be the glue that holds another person or a relationship together.
Yeah.
No one person can do that. We're all our own responsibilities, and at the end of the day, if you see something in someone, it is one thing to shed a light on that and to give a person the opportunity to see it for themselves. Right. Versus you see it, so you're going to take it on like it's your job to kind of fix them.
Yeah. And that's what a lot of people do. They take it as their responsibility to save this person. I'll say, in my relationship, I really wanted to, and it could be different reasons, but my thing was, in my toxic relationship, I wanted to prove to this person that there was such a thing as a good man out there. And, because in her mind, because of her father, this was her trauma. Because of her father, she just felt like there was no such thing as a good man. Okay? And because of my trauma and being given away by my mother, I wanted to prove that there was a person who was worthy, like a person who was good enough to, so those two traumas connect, and that's just a recipe for disaster. Because she's holding on to her belief, which is no men are good, and I'm holding on to my belief that I'm good, and we're both trying to prove this thing to each other.
Yes.
Right? And so I'm going out of my way to prove that I'm good. I'm, breaking my back trying to prove that I'm this good man. And she's going out of her way to prove, no, you're not. So she's giving me hell and I'm giving myself hell. And it just creates, this whole toxic explosion. So it really is important for a person to be able to see themselves before they cause their own destruction while they're trying to, stop somebody else from causing theirs.
Yeah, because the reality is you think you're going to prove something to somebody, but really you're trying to prove that to yourself.
Yeah.
You needed to know that you were good. Yeah. And you thought that if she could believe that and validate that for you, that it could be true.
Jackpot, I'm good.
Yes.
Right. Yes. That's exactly what it is. A lot of this is... it really is about self. I don't want to use the word selfishness, but it really is about self. It's all about self.
Yes.
You may be doing good for a person. You may be loving this person. You may be, trying your best to save this person. But there's really something within you that's driving that force. And that's what you have to be mindful of.
Yeah. Really, it's just revealing yourself to yourself.
Yeah.
Through someone else. If you have a big enough heart to think that you can take on this person and save them from themselves, and you can prove that that it's just really a whole kind of conglomeration of things that are already true.
Yeah.
But you're just trying to get validated through somebody else. If someone can just know that they are good, that they are worthy, that their love is true. If someone can just know that and respect it actually enough within themselves to protect it, to have the boundaries and to understand balance, then it'll be a whole different ball game.
So let's talk about that a little bit, because that was one of the things in the video that really kind of struck you, is in terms of balance. So you're a giver, you're a healer. Those are the two things that I absolutely love about you. But you've had some trouble with that. So, and I'm the opposite, where, I can't, because I'm not the healer. I'm more so of a teacher, right, by nature. But I'm really good with boundaries. I mean, it's something that I had to learn over time, but I'm really good with boundaries in terms of, just protecting myself. So as a healer and as a giver, what makes it so difficult to maintain that balance and to establish those boundaries and to keep them in place?
I think that a lot of the answer to that question would be selflessness versus selfishness. And the thing is, like, selfishness is necessary.
Right.
But if you're a giver and a healer in kind of an extreme sense, to where you just feel like you're just here to love, you're just here to give, you're just here to provide, like, these healing waters to everyone that comes into your midst,
Right.
It's like for someone who may have felt the way that I have felt about that, which also can come from a place of trauma as well. It's like any boundary that you put up, any standard that you set is kind of, now all of a sudden you have to cut some people off from access to that healing well.
That's hard.
Because at that point, if you have boundaries, if you have standards, if you are protecting yourself, not everybody can access it.
Right.
But as that person, you want everybody to have it because everybody needs it.
Yeah.
Everybody really needs it. And it feels so much like everybody deserves it.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, for me personally, I can say putting boundaries in place and enforcing them, having standards as to who can access me and who can't, has been a journey in learning how to do that. Because when you're doing that, it almost feels like you're telling people, well, you don't deserve it, and you don't get to access it, and you don't deserve it. And it's it's like, how do you tell people they don't deserve that?
Yeah.
When all you want to do is just freely just love and give and hug everybody and cry with everybody and just let people know it's okay.
Yeah. I remember when, and I wrote about her in the book. She was the muse in the book, and I'll never forget when she said that she had to learn how to be a savage with herself. And what she was saying is, I have to learn how to savagely cut people off, even people who I love, because I have to protect myself for myself and for other people who deserve me.
Yeah.
Right? And so I can imagine that being a giver and being, a healer, that would be hard to do. One thing I would say, I was thinking about this as you were saying it, everybody does deserve, that healing energy, but you're not the only source of it.
Right.
Right? There are a lot of healers in the world. And unfortunately, a lot of them are being taken advantage of, but they end up closing themselves off, or they become sick, like I talked about in the video. But there's a lot of healers in the world, and there's a lot of healing sources in general. Like for me, a big healing source is what do you think it is?
A big healing source?
Yeah, a big healing source for me.
Well, to name a few, I mean,
you're gonna if I told you, you're gonna be like, oh, of course, the beach.
Definitely the water.
The water is huge for me. Just being near the water, living near the water, going out in the middle of the night and just chilling on the beach is a big source of healing for me. So it's really on the person who needs healing, their responsibility to find out what they need for healing. It can't just be one source. It can't just be one person. Right. There's a lot to put on one individual. You need different things. I love flowers around me. I love you around me. I love the beach. There are different things that fill me, and it's the responsibility of the ill and the healer to surround themselves with things that fill them back up.
Yeah.
You can't just lean on one person because it's unfair, and you can't just allow people to just lean on you because it's unfair.
Yeah.
You have to protect yourself for the people who need you, for those around you. And another thing is, and I know we've talked about this before, you're an artist. The beautiful thing about art is that people can connect with your art in a way that brings healing to them. Just like I'm a writer, the reason why I write books is because I can't talk to everybody. Like when I first started talking about relationships, people wanted to call me and talk all the time. The only reason I wrote books is so that I could put it all in one place and they could get it. So it's like, it's not even that I just wanted to sit there and write books for days on end. It's just that there's only so much of me.
Yeah.
And there are creative ways that you can allow more people access to you without costing yourself so much of your energy.
Absolutely.
You can pour that energy into things, and people consume it, and it gives them that same healing. Right. So it's really important that people find ways to, healers find ways to really stay in line and or be in tune with their higher self without allowing themselves to be drained completely.
Exactly. That's another part of the video that I really resonated with when you talked about protecting yourself so that you can remain what you are.
Right, yeah.
If you don't protect yourself, if you don't have those boundaries, if you don't put things in place as ways to give without depleting yourself.
Right.
If you don't do that, then you will cease to be what you are.
And that in itself is a type of death.
Yeah.
And that's really I even when I went back and rewatched the video, I saw how I kind of deflated when I said that part, because it really is sad to see that when people don't have boundaries and they're really not careful or being savages with them with their energy, they lose the very thing that it's like their essence. They lose that part of themselves, and they can no longer be that.
Right.
So I love to teach. It doesn't matter if there's one person in front of me, one person listening to a video, or 100,000 people. It's just what I am. And so if I ever got to the place where I could no longer be that, then that would be a part of me that died.
Yeah.
So I have to protect that part of myself, and whatever a person is naturally, they have to do whatever they can to protect that, so that they can always be that and operate within their natural selves. I heard this quote one time, and it sounds so harsh, and I think it wasn't actually a quote. It was something that somebody told me, and I think I wrote about this in one of my books. I'm not sure which one it is, but so I'll tell you the story. I was a kid, and I had saved up money all year long, right, to go to this convention at the end of the year. And so I had a pocket full of dollars. I don't know, maybe let's say like 20, 25 bucks or something like that. And as I was walking to McDonald's that morning, I was so excited to get the little Happy Meal breakfast, whatever it is. But there were a lot of homeless people on the way to McDonald's.
Yeah.
So all of the homeless people were asking me for money. And it felt so good to give them money. So I get to McDonald's, I order, what it is that I wanted to eat, and I went to pay for it, and I realized that I didn't have the money to pay for it. Right? So the people who I was giving money to on the way to McDonald's had more money than me by the time I got there.
Yeah.
So I couldn't even feed myself anymore.
Yeah.
And so that just really taught me the lesson of the best thing you can do for people who need you in a certain way is to not become whatever they are. Right? It sounds terrible, but at the same time, it's like, if you want to help these people, you cannot become, or you can't get into the position that they're in.
Yes.
And in order to do that, you have to protect what it is that you're giving them, no matter what it is. Healing, love, teaching, money, whatever it is, you have to be mindful of yourself and have those safeguards in place.
I absolutely love that. And that really, bringing it back to both people having the responsibility, as that healing entity, you really do have a responsibility to do that and not become the sick.
Yeah.
If you are a healer, you have to be healthy.
Yes.
You have to first be healthy in order to heal.
Yeah.
So that's huge, and if you don't do that, then you're not helping anyone, and you certainly are not. You're not helping the person that you think you're helping. You're not helping yourself, and you won't have anything to help anyone in the future.
Yeah. The last thing that I wanted to say before we close this inaugural podcast out is, and I wanted to put this in the video. I don't think I got a chance to say it, but you also can't be afraid to retreat within yourself. And you can't feel bad about taking time away from everybody and just going into yourself and doing what you need to do to refill.
Yeah.
It is so important that we do that. People need you, and they don't really like when you retreat into yourself to take care of yourself, because they're thinking like, wait a minute, I need you, and that's a good time to figure out who is really about the best you too. Like when you need time to yourself, who is just going to disappear and who's going to say, hey, what can I do for you? How can I be there for you the way that you've been there for me? Those are the people who you want the closest to you, because when you're a giver, there are going to be times in your life when you need those people. Yeah,
absolutely. And again, you have to know that you're healthy. You have to keep yourself balanced and in a healthy place, because if you are retreating into yourself, it's like a space that you're going to.
Yeah.
And if that space is not a healthy space, it's not a space that you're going to want to be.
Right.
So you do have to have that balance and maintain your health mentally, emotionally, and energetically in order to be able to go there and have a retreat.
Yeah.
Because if not, you're just going to have some more work to do inside of yourself.
Yeah. All right. That was good. I like it.
Yeah.
All right. So this was the first one, and we're gonna do this like after every video. I really appreciate having you on to this one. Yeah. Let's just see where this thing goes.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah. All right, you guys. So I hope you got something out of this video, this podcast. Make sure you tune in for the next video. I can't even talk today. Make sure you tune in for the next video and the next podcast. Until next time, peace and light.